I was told I was the first ever speaker at the Rise. That obviously means a lot of pressure, but I was told there's only 25 people here. Clearly, that's not the case. Anyway, I think I better say something interesting. Otherwise, it's not a great honor to have been the first ever speaker here. Now, I had to change the topic a little bit. They told me the topic is that Chinese entrepreneurs are no longer copycats. They're innovators. But in my view, the real topic should be the Chinese entrepreneurs were not copycats and will not be copycats, and they have been innovators all along. Well, I think clearly there is some misperceptions, probably especially in the overseas media, about how Chinese tech world works and whether those Chinese companies are just a pure copycats. One big perception here is people talk about Chinese company has borrowed or learned from US tech models. Obviously, it's only natural that way because people have to learn from somewhere. Back 15, 16 years ago, when the first batch of internet entrepreneurs found their companies, US is ahead of us about 5 to 10 years. So there are a lot of companies being labeled by media or by other competitors, called it, they are the China's X, the China's Yahoo, China's Google, etc., etc. Clearly, learning is not necessarily a bad thing. But very importantly, every successful company from that batch, I would say almost every successful company from that batch, has learned, but at the same time, innovate. And I think this is actually, the latter part is probably the most important part, because the market is different. If you just learn without innovate, you'll die many years ago. For example, my own company back 15 years ago, Ctrip, will never survive if we just learn from Expedia or Booking.com. How to innovate? You're based on the local customers' unique needs, the infrastructure, as well as the different market dynamics. I think almost every single successful company did that. I mean, today, obviously, no one ever probably remember ICQ because it's no longer a very, very important product. But you can argue back 20 years ago when Tencent started, QQ somewhat learned from ICQ. But again, they have gone a very long way. When they launched WeChat, do we think they actually mimic WhatsApp? Clearly not. There are a lot of very new different features. In fact, if you check very closely, in many so-called US social network company, you can find some traits of the features has been developed at the WeChat many, many months before those features has been launched. Coming back to my company, Ctrip, back 20 years ago when I was an entrepreneur, not an investor, indeed, if we just learn without innovate, we just probably going to have a very tiny, tiny customer base and transaction volume, because the Chinese users are not customers as yet to using PC internet to booking. People love to use mobile phone to make place phone calls. So we developed a very sophisticated call center systems to addressing their needs. So on the product side, it's different because good part of it was through call center. In fact, we feel call center is a very good way to differentiate yourself because you can developing some very sophisticated service to make sure the customer no longer so sensitive to pricings. On the marketing side, we are again different. If you try to use search engines to drive traffic, you may not get much. But we use offline vehicles. We cooperate with China Telecom, China Mobile, all the major credit card company, and I guess a lot of people still remember we have distribution counters at the major airports. I would bet a lot of people here become Ctrip customer because you get a card at this particular Chinese airport. So that's the way company like Ctrip has moved along, survived, and thrived. Of course, when mobile internet comes, we're starting to have the product fully on internet basis, as well as largely acquisition customers and service customers through internet. Another very good example is VIP Shop. You can argue that this is someone tried to mimic what Guild has been done, but today it's a much bigger business than Guild, because the Chinese user a lot more love discount, but they want quality product, branded product, and that's extremely true for the female shoppers in the second and third city in China. And on top of that, there's a huge inventory clearance needs from various of consumer brands, especially on the apparel side. This is very different dynamics from the US world. So that's why VIP Shop, with a very strong supply chain network, with a very strong customer stickiness, is able to grow to this size. And very different from Guild, they actually use large, they put a lot of efforts on offline brandings to become really a very strong internet asset. You probably will not be surprised their advertisement, their sponsorship advertisement at many TV programs in China. That clearly was not any e-commerce company in the US tried to do. And their mini model actually are homeborn in China and actually can explore to US or to other part of the world. But again, if you do that, you have to innovate those products in a way that it's fit the local environment. For example, 360 Qihu is clearly a homeborn model. Use security as an entry point, drive traffic, build its browser, and then drive into the search business. That business today has been mimicked, or you can call it copycat, in many other countries, but not necessarily by Qihu itself. Some other local startups are doing that, and they have to do it in a slightly different way to addressing the different local market. In fact, copycats not just happen cross-border, but also happen within a particular, I think, regions. In China, there are many copycats of Ctrip, but I would say most of them end up nowhere. Because why? Because if you just copy without innovate, the only possibility is a distant number 2. At the Ctrip, when I was running Ctrip together with my co-founders, every single time we talk our competitor, we're worried a little bit, but we're not tolerable worry. We in Chinese are saying, 一直被模仿，从来没有被超越. So always be mimicked, but never be exceeded. And that's normally will be the dynamics for someone just to just try to copycat. So that's, I think, really where things stands, for the Chinese internet development. And I would say in the last 5 to 10 years, with mobile internet, the situation is getting more different from US. You have to be probably more looking to what the real needs of the customers and developing some very unique models. Because the mobile internet in China and the US happen very much around the same time. So it's different from the PC world, where there are a lot of reference you can go to and learn. Today, we are around the same level of sophistication, and oftentimes you have to really think about a new business model yourselves. Talk about misperceptions. I think the second misperception is that people are arguing China is lack of so-called world-class technologies. Again, that's a very bad misperception. First of all, any innovation on business model requires very sophisticated technology to go with it. I don't think you can argue Tencent, Alibaba, and Baidu are just technology application company. Behind the scene, you have to developing sophisticated technology to serve your customers. And many are original technologies. But as a customer, you may not feel it because you're just using the apps and didn't realize that there are many probably big data techs behind the scenes. But on top of that, what we have seen is that there are many real homeborn technology companies with a real global edge. I think people here now already know the names like BGI's, Guangqi, and DJI Dajiang. Their day one has servicing a global customer, and the reason they are able to service them is because they really have a world-class cutting-edge technology. I don't want to go to details because there are a lot of companies like the next tomorrow's DJI and BGI. But I do want to talk a little bit about why China is able to create those companies. I think you need 3 factors. One, you need very large user base. And China is very unique like that. There's probably a few countries in the world have that. You have US and some other countries with large populations. Brazil has that. But I want to talk about why Brazil probably not able to come up with as sophisticated as China for internet development. Second factor, you need large number of strong engineers, as well as academic researchers. And China has that. If you look at Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, any technology hubs, while there's a science park, because there are a lot of universities and there's a large amount of engineers ready to developing all those sophisticated products. And this is something Israel have. But unfortunately, Israel does not have the first factor. Brazil have the second factor. Brazil have the first factor, but not have the second factor. Can you find 1,000 people very quickly in Brazil as very top engineers? That's probably a very tough task. Thirdly, very importantly, if you only have 1 and 2, it doesn't work. The third one is that you need some, probably not a large amount, very strong entrepreneurs. People know how to lead those engineers. People know how to address the user demand. People have insights, and people able to grow company from 0 to very big and scale up. Now, leaders this time around, compared with 10 to 15 years ago, I would say are getting more sophisticated in the same age because they are more international. International does not necessarily mean you have to go to US or Europe to get a degree from Harvard, Yale, or working at major internet company for many years. Today, if you are able to learn quickly, you can learn what's happening around the world through internet. As long as actually you are smart enough, if you are entrepreneur enough. In our case, in many portfolio companies of China, of Sequoia China, there are some who has learned their ways in the US, studied and worked, but there are many others, homeborn entrepreneurs, but they are very international. So if you talk about innovations for the next 5, 10 years, I'm probably even more optimistic than back 10, 15 years ago at the Ctrip days. Because if you talk about the leaders, the entrepreneurs, the quality, the sophistication of those CEOs and entrepreneurs are getting better and better today. So that's why I'm an active investor, and I'll continue to be an active investor in the Chinese tech world. And I believe there are many real innovations moving ahead. Thank you.